Welcome to Elite Broker, the podcast showcasing the leading players and stories of success from Australia's broking industry.
Hello and welcome back to Elite Broker, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes with Australia's top performing mortgage and finance brokers. I'm your host for today, Annie Kane. And this week we're speaking with the number one broker in the Advisor's Elite Broker Residential Ranking for 2025, Katie Thomas from Focus Finance. Now, if you don't know Katie, she's based up in the Hunter Valley and topped this year's 2025 ranking after writing an incredible $496 million in residential loans over FY25 across 280 loans. That's an average loan size of $1.7 million. She also submitted more than 420 loan applications in the same period, showing not only high volumes, but also serious consistency and drive. And it's not just Katie making waves at Focus Finance either. Her colleagues Ashley Soleil also featured in the Elite Broker ranking this year, coming in at 31st of the top 100 with more than 182 million in settlements across 214 loans. So together with their small but mighty team, Focus Finance is achieving phenomenal growth, lodging nearly 1,000 applications over FY25, an extraordinary effort for a three-person brokerage. So in today's episode, we've brought Katie in to ask her how on earth they're doing it all, how they maintain quality and client care at scale, and what it really takes to reach the very top of the rankings. So welcome, Katie, and thank you for joining me. How are you going?
Thanks so much, Annie. Happy to be here. Really good, thank you.
Yeah, well, you're up in the Hunter Valley, so you're zooming in for this one, and we appreciate you taking the time because I know we've had some fires up there recently. So stay safe, and hopefully we stay sort of safe and for this whole podcast. But the main thing I think that many people will want to ask you is, the Hunter Valley is probably not known for having huge dollar value loans, but you have a massive amount of loans, and in this year coming top in the Elite Broker ranking. Firstly, amazing achievement because you're a regional broker. Secondly, an amazing achievement because you are our first woman to top the ranking. Amazing work. And then thirdly,
love that.
And thirdly, because it's a huge amount of volume as well. So we're going to really pick your brain about how on earth you're doing it. But before we do, let's go back to the beginning. So let's talk about how long have you been a broker for?
Yep, I've been a broker for 6 years.
6 years. Okay, so why did you even become a broker in the first place? How did you get here?
Well, before I was a broker, I've been in finance for 17 years. So I've worked in the banking sector for a long time. So I was at Westpac for 12 years before I became a broker. So I still had a fairly decent background in finance before I became a broker. I did a lot of different lending for Westpac. I did commercial and business banking, agri, equipment, and home lending. So I had a fairly vast journey there before becoming a broker, but lending was largely the primary love of what I did. I just wanted to do it en masse a little bit more than just one singular policy.
Yeah, awesome. So you decided to become a broker yourself. When you took that decision, I mean, I think it's quite a common route for people is they kind of go from banking to broking. Did you decide that you wanted to have your own brokerage, or did you think about maybe joining someone else?
Yeah, so initially when I first left Westpac, I did have another team that I was working with at the time. So there was a pocket there where I was with both, and then eventually it sort of just merged into our own business.
So now Focus Finance became your brokerage. What did you, when you think about actually becoming a broker, some of the first steps you kind of have to think about are the structure of your business and what aggregator you're going to use and what kind of model you're going to go down. Like, do you go franchise? Do you not? Did you ever consider that? Or is it because you were joining a group already, you kind of just went with what they had?
Yeah, no, I definitely considered it. So initially at the time, I did look at Aussie and Mortgage Choice and Independent, and I really did look at all of their models between, cost and the franchise models and how that looked. Largely from my perspective, though, because I did have quite a decent career already in finance and was already largely self-sourced within the banking sector anyway, I didn't really feel I needed to rely necessarily on lead generation coming from a franchise model. So I was happy for it to be more independent, and Connective supports that really well as an aggregator.
Yeah. Okay. So Connective was the aggregator you ended
Yes.
up with. Did
Yeah.
you then, when you, I'm always curious to know, like when people choose their aggregators, like, did you go kind of with set questions to be like, these are the things I want to know? Like, was it about, the people, or was it about the technology, or was it about the access? Like, I wonder what it was that really clinched it for you.
That I did none of that. That would all be best practice, and I would highly recommend people do. It was absolutely fine for me now because Connective have been amazing support for me, which luckily, but really none of those things, if I'm completely honest. It was more of Connective then and still obviously have a very big name in the industry. And so at that time it was more of a natural fit to just stay there. But I really, fairly naively, to be totally honest, didn't really know what I didn't know at the time. I didn't know what I should or shouldn't ask. And if anybody from Connective remembers the old Mercury that we had at the time, luckily you don't know any different at that stage because they've done an insane upgrade from where we started. But I didn't really have any specific questions at that stage, and I probably fumbled my way through the early years of that.
And you also, I mean, 6 years ago, 2019, so you were kind of entering at a really weird time because, of course, then
I
we had
know.
COVID straight away.
Yes,
How did
I
you
know.
manage all that when you were a new broker?
Yeah, absolutely. So that hadn't happened yet, but I come in tail end of 2019. So really 2020 was my first year in as a full year. Got a really decent run at that before anything kind of happened. And then it was really more towards the tail end of that year where we're a little bit like, okay, this is interesting. And then the following year, obviously, it really was very interesting. I was also pregnant through that as well. So I had my third child in 2021 as well. So it was a diabolical year on all fronts. And I think everybody initially went with kind of, how is this going to impact? We obviously had all the policy changes from lenders. We had the super schemes at the time where you could extract and then people trying to use that through gen savings and all of these different things that were happening at that stage, and there was concerns at that point that obviously the market potentially was not going to perform very well, and the opposite ended up occurring. We were absolutely flat out. The business just went absolutely crazy through that period because we had a great environment.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk a little bit later about like how you actually manage high volumes and how you kind of deal with all that.
Yeah.
But before I do, I kind of want to stay focused on the beginning journeys of broking
Yeah.
to get to where you are today. So, I mean, you
Mhm.
talked about being at Westpac and kind of writing all kinds of loans. So, did you
Yeah.
start decide when you started your brokerage, I'm going to do everything? Were you like, I'm just going to do resi? Like, what did you decide your brokerage was going to be handling?
Initially, definitely resi. I already had a commercial and business banking background, so I was happy to lean into it, but I really wanted to nail down resi first. So I was a home lender at Westpac. I knew that space very well from a structuring perspective, I suppose. So I really wanted to continue in that space for a period of time. And then I knew how business banking and commercial lending worked within Westpac. But I really wanted to make sure that I had a very good understanding of that across the brokerage sector before I really delved into it too much.
So, I'm guessing your first deal then was a mortgage. Can you remember what it
It
was?
was, yes, I can. It was at CBA. It was just one of those really marginal deals too, that you go, this one, you really got to fight for the client on this one. She was a widower and she was trying to retain her home, and I really, really, really wanted to get this done for her. And I obviously knew Westpac's policy very well. Oh, it didn't fit Westpac's policy. She did get it done, but it was definitely a bit of a fight, that deal. And but new broker, I think you also really want to come in swinging, I think.
Yeah. So sorry, just for context, like what was it that was difficult? Was it servicing?
Yeah, it was a multitude of things. Her age also, because she at that point, was a little bit older. The exit strategy needed to be very precise to make sure that we could get that done loan term for the servicing, because obviously older applicant at the time, and CBA were really supportive of it.
So, I mean, it's really interesting when you come from a bank as well to then have to learn someone else's policy. Were you surprised at the variation in people's policies when you first started broking?
Not the policy so much as the valuations.
Mm.
The valuations were probably one where I knew there was a bit of variance. I didn't quite realize early days how much variance there was between bank vals.
Do you think that's because they're doing it like, some are doing desktop and some are doing like full vals? Like, what do you think is causing the variance?
I think even on desktops, whether it's AVMs or whatever, it's the algorithm. It's how they're choosing to extract the data, whether it's highest of three or average of three, or how they've got that data pulling through from in behind the scenes, and obviously market share at that time,
Yeah.
appetite.
Yeah. And that is a common one that we hear, especially from new brokers, being like,
Yeah.
how is it possible that these are like,
Yeah.
sometimes $500,000 difference, being like,
Yeah.
that's a huge difference. Like, how?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
So did you find that that was kind of what you were spending a lot of your time doing when you first started, just kind of being like, who's got the best vals, like, or how can I make this work with different lenders looking at their valuations?
Yeah, I did a lot of, well, because it was COVID through those first couple of years, purchases were a huge thing. So the valuations weren't as pivotal. I don't think it was, sometimes we would do a refi, equity extract, etc. But so I definitely noticed it. But because that period of time there was so many purchases, the valuations on a contract of sale
Yeah.
hopefully largely the same. But yeah, the at that point, I wouldn't say between then and now, to be honest, there is more or less variance. I think it's been very consistent across the last 6 years. There's been as much variance then as there is now.
Which is crazy because you think like we were in a record low interest rate cycle. We were going up, obviously. So it's kind of strange now that rates are coming down that we still have the same variance in house prices. You'd think that things would kind of be
Yeah.
changing as house price demand goes up and down. Although I suppose it's
Mm,
been pretty high the whole time, this last 6 years.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you mentioned about, when you first started, you really wanted to nail resi. Did you then go on to add other types of loan offerings into your business?
Yeah, I've definitely done commercial since then, and dealt with, and for most brokers that they would know that commercial on the broker side of the fence is very different to in the banks, especially if you've been a business banker in a major, because there is really no middleman. So the process is definitely different for broker versus banker on commercial.
What would the difference be? Like, you just do more work?
Yeah. No, it's more really as a banker for a major bank, your direct line of sight. At the time, I had a credit approval limit. So I was really it. You could come in, I knew exactly what I could approve, the deal, put the deals together. If it had to go to high credit, there is really no middleman in there. It's pretty seamless. And the same largely still occurs now, except the broker has to send it to that business banker to process that deal in that way. So you're highly reliant on the capability of the business banker versus just the data set of the deal.
Interesting. And do you do any other types of loans like asset finance or, unsecured cash flow?
Asset finance, we would do minimal of. We don't do an enormous amount of it. We do some, but really only bolted onto an existing client to assist.
Yeah. Well, I obviously want to pick your brain then about resi, which sounds like that's your core bread and butter. And I imagine in the
Yep.
Hunter Valley, in my dreams, it's like you're just walking around wineries and you're like, yeah, do you want to buy this winery? It's got a lovely cottage at the back or something.
Yeah.
Is that what the reality is like? Or are you just sort of going around Cessnock?
Yeah, the vineyards are definitely gorgeous. They are absolutely lovely. There is so many beautiful spots. I think the biggest thing though is You don't really need to isolate your client type to where you live either, though. And COVID probably did a very good job at teaching us that. I think before then, naively, again, we kind of, especially for me coming from bank world, because they were domiciled to your local area. So it really was COVID that kind of opened the door at that stage to go, well, I can't meet you anyway. So it kind of now doesn't matter what your address is anymore. So once that happened and the technology changed, how we can ID clients changed, how we could do face-to-face meetings changed, that really opened the door to the country more so, and even internationally. I've got clients in 6 different countries.
Wow.
So it really changed how that looked, I guess, instead of it just needing to be that localized model.
Yeah, so broking without boundaries now.
Yes.
So do you think that the majority of your business is still local, or is it kind of a
No,
mix?
total mix. Absolute
Wow.
mix. Yeah. Yeah. Absolute mix.
Now, the big question, of course, which many people I'm sure will want to know is you came top of the Elite Broker ranking this year, which is, I think it's
Hmm.
the second year we've done it.
Hmm.
And this year, the residential ranking partnered by RealFlow. It's the second year we've done the ranking. And as I said, it's the first year that we've had a woman top it. So we're super pumped about that. But you wrote something crazy in FY25. So 280 loans, but $496 million. Now, I want to ask, how on earth are you doing that? Are you just making friends with loads of millionaires and being like, I'm only going to write like high dollar value business? Because that's a high average loan size.
No, I don't feel like that's the case. Do we have high profile clients? Absolutely. Yes, we do have a lot of lovely business owners that I, being self-employed, coming from a SME background, I do affiliate with self-employed clients, with businesses a lot. And naturally, I think being self-employed as well, businesses evolve going through different phases of what you're going through at the time. When I was a first home buyer, I loved dealing with first home buyers and all of that. And, now I'm a business owner and I've got so much in common with other business owners. So their profile as a demographic is slightly different. Our business at large, though, isn't structured that way. It's just who naturally aligns with me and the complexity of their files. Their locations of properties, yes, might be in capital cities. It doesn't need to be here in the Hunter Valley or Cessnock, which that average deal size would be enormously difficult
Yeah.
to achieve. Um, but it's, yeah, so you can, if you're not limiting your mindset to a local area or client type, it is probably a little bit easier to then tailor that around clients that you just naturally affiliate with and align with, and you build really lovely relationships with those people.
So if they're not local to you, how are you finding these clients? Like, how do you actually generate leads?
Yeah, yeah. So I think really over the last 17 years, before I even left Westpac, I was already completely self-sourced from the relationships I held. So those relationships just organically grew over my time in lending. So there are, real estate agents here in the Hunter Valley that I've dealt with for over 10 years now, and we still are very close. We still work together a lot. Now, you can obviously imagine who's buying in the Hunter Valley might not live in the Hunter Valley. So I have had Sydney-based clients for a very long time because they're buying a weekender in the Hunter Valley, which is multi-million dollar weekenders. But those relationships then just can organically build out. We have relationships with really every professional service that you would imagine we would: accountants, planners, real estate, buyer's agent, like everything really in there. But it just organically grows. And then once you've done that for a period of time, the book itself then becomes self-propagating. So early days that doesn't look like that. You've got a real grind building out those relationships, solidifying them, and then you're building out your client base. And if you continue to consistently do the most ordinary things in an extraordinary way, the clients obviously appreciate that. And then that just ends up being itself a absolute beast of a lead funnel that it's almost difficult to slow down.
Yeah. So did you find that that was really what made your business grow over the first few years, was kind of going beyond, above and beyond, like finding those solutions, for example, for your first client, for the widower, to be like, it didn't, no
Yeah.
one thought it would fit. I managed
Yeah.
to make it work. Was it around that, just making this sort of unachievable achievable?
Yeah, I think even before that though, because the core relationships I held were before my business. I did that from the bank before I even started the brokerage. And I think my resilience and tenacity to get something done probably built out relationships with a lot of people, because they really backed that if I couldn't get it done, it couldn't be done. They knew I would do absolutely everything to get that over the line for that person if it was the right thing to do for them. And if it wasn't, they backed my call on it. But they knew that there is no stone I would leave unturned to make sure I've done everything I can possibly do to try and help that person. And I guess the above and beyond version, which to me doesn't necessarily feel that way, but comparatively probably did look like that from competitors, especially in a banking space.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break here, Katie. When we come back, I'd like to talk to you about how you actually establish those referral partners, those real estate agents, to
Yeah.
get those connections coming in through the door, and then also your process. So how on earth
Mhm.
do you manage to stay on top of so many applications? We'll get
Mhm.
into that just after this break. So just before the break there, you were talking about the fact that, you have really long-standing relationships with real estate agents and
Mhm.
from people that you were working with when you were still at the bank before you became a
Yeah.
broker, obviously carried those
Mhm.
over. But how do you form those relationships in the first place? Because I think if you're trying to start out as a new broker, or if you're trying to
Yeah.
kind of get a new referral partnership on board, maybe expand your pool, it can be hard to cut through all the
Mhm.
competition and be like,
Mhm.
choose me, don't choose this other guy. So how
Mhm.
did you do it?
To be honest, early days, I think came in from a level of curiosity, and I built out the relationships at that stage, just wanting to understand them as individual human beings. There was no hard sell. There was no work with me as a broker or banker or anything like that. There was, I want to understand you and your business, and let's get to know each other as people. And if that works and we're aligned and our values align, let's just let that relationship organically grow. I backed that I could do the deals. Like, I knew that the client experience was going to be really good. I knew I would fight really hard for any deal with any credit team to get something over the line. So I was, I guess, reasonably confident that should there be a relationship there, they would be happy with the client experience. But I think the core of working with other people is that you actually just genuinely align as people. I really only work with other referral parties where our values are aligned. We have the same care factor for a client. And if there is anything outside of that, there are relationships that, we've been approached to work with that I will not work with. It's not how we operate. We won't work with the client in that way. The client is really at the heart of what we're doing and trying to make sure that we've delivered on that for them. So those relationships really just organically grew from coming from a very genuine place of, I want to get to know you as a person and you get to know me. And then if we both feel the same way about getting the best outcome for a client, then we're both going to deliver that.
So you're kind of maybe cutting out people who you feel like you don't have the best interest of the client at heart.
100%. We will not work with them at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Because obviously our business is probably at a different place now. We get approached to work with other people. And there are a lot we will not work with.
Yeah.
And It's if the price of that relationship is your integrity, the cost is too high. We won't do it.
Yeah. And so I think like looking at we, you've talked a few times there about
Yeah,
we. Take me
yeah,
back to who is we? So who's in the
yeah.
team?
Yeah. Every time I say we, I mean the team because it's such a team effort. We have an enormous, ability like you with the whole team. And I don't do anything by myself. There is nothing about any single dollar of anything that I've ever written I've done on my own. So it's definitely a team effort and they are like the extended family I think everybody wishes they had. But we now have five brokers. The last financial year we had three. We now have five brokers, but we have a 20, there's 24 now in the entire team.
Wow. So who is
Yeah.
the rest? Like who are the I can't do the maths, what the nine? No. 11,
Yeah,
11.
yeah,
Why did I even do the
yeah.
maths on that? I'm like, wait, how many did you say?
19.
Yeah, sorry, thank you,
Yeah,
19 people.
yeah,
Who are the people? What are
yeah,
they doing?
yeah. So we have a mix of roles throughout that. So the roles really align to the process largely of a file. So the front end of the process has a segregated amount of roles in there aligning to skill sets so that we can organically upskill people through into higher roles and the level of the file that they're dealing with at the time matches to their skill. So there is, a process engine behind that and how that's built out. Then there's obviously the broker team. Then we now have people in operations as well. So that's very recent. We've only done this financial year, but prior to that, it's really just been broker and support team.
Okay, and are they based in Australia or are they overseas?
Yep, yeah. So the bulk of the team is all in the office, crammed in our
Okay.
little office.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome. So you actually have a full office space.
yeah.
Why did you decide to do that and not kind of work remotely or not offshore?
No, we definitely do still have some offshore, but the bulk are onshore. Um, so I think this is more my personality type. I'm useless working from home by myself for an extended period of time. I'm too social and I don't work best like that. And the team really are very, very, very uplifting. This can be a very challenging industry. There can be challenging you know roles and files and all of these different things that you're navigating and having your team around you all the time is really helpful to be able to navigate through that. Can you do that remotely and have relationships built out remote? Absolutely sure you can, but I absolutely love being in the office with the core of the team.
Yeah. So where is the office?
We have two. We have one office in Maitland and we have another office in Newcastle.
And do you just split your time between the two?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I just bounce between both of them.
Yeah, because I always think that's interesting when people have two premises because I'm
Yeah.
like, especially like, some franchise brokers, they have like 4 or 5 franchises. I'm like, how on
Uh-huh.
earth do you have the time to go and
Yeah.
do all this and manage all those people? But it sounds like now you've got some help with the operation. So why you said that was a new thing this
Yep.
financial year. What do they
Mm.
do and why did you bring them in?
Well, I feel like you need to hire for your flaws, to be totally honest. And I think I'm really great at the broker end. And I think a lot of brokers are like this as well. So, there are things that are not going to set your world on fire as a broker that operationally as a business, other people are brilliant at. Absolutely brilliant. And you need to hire people that are smarter than you in those spaces if you want to get in a position that you can scale the business. You need some pretty decent arsenal there in the back end of the operations in so many areas outside just being a good broker and people leader, whatever that looks like when you're at that level of business. To kind of get it to another level, you need highly skilled people in there to build that up.
Yeah, so for you, it's more around the kind of the actual admin or the admin, like the kind of the running of the operational business of the offices.
It's not even that so much as the strategic outlook of the company. So it's probably more above that level. We, have support for that, but the purpose of it is more strategic outlook. So, compliance, risk, governance, scale, processes, getting all of those things locked down, policies, procedures, operational rhythms, or all of the bigger ticket items, I think that you really need locked down for a business to scale appropriately.
Yeah. And you have scaled massively. I was actually looking
Mm.
at your LinkedIn profile before we started
Nah.
talking, and I saw a
Yeah.
post on there, and I haven't verified these figures, but I'll take them as read. But
Yeah.
you had an October update, and you said in
Mhm.
October you lodged 200, I don't know if actually if it's lodged or settled, 227 deals. This is the team,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
$111 million in loans
Yes.
just in October. That
Yes.
is
Correct.
massive. I mean, so many
Yep.
brokers would be like, I would want my brokerage to do that over a whole year. You've done it in
Yeah.
1 month. So you're obviously
Yep.
doing, and in September, the month before, again, over 200 deals, over $111 million.
Yep.
Huge numbers. So you obviously really need a process that works in order
Yes.
to get through that volume.
100%.
Um, can you actually walk me through then what exactly does a typical process look for you? Let's say I'm your client, I walk in and say,
Yep.
Katie, I want to buy a house. What happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. So really the onboarding process of the client occurs. We have an automated process that does a lot of that initial fact find, I suppose, from the client's perspective. So that's brought in, then that comes into our team. Then based on client time is where they're allocated to broker. So we have a process around how we determine the alignment. So that could be complexity of client, complexity of file, complexity of purpose, whatever that looks like, and then where that needs to then sit with the broker. So we have people that are brilliant with first home buyers, investors, self-managed super funds, commercial, whatever that is. So then that's aligned appropriately, and then that's dispersed through the team. So the team, I generate all leads for the team. So the team then just allocated what is appropriate for them to be on. So that will then come through, it's allocated out, and then the client process starts with obviously obtaining documents, going through all of that. They are reviewed and pre-reviewed. There are people at the front end of the process that do that. Then once all of that is now down, we will then organize an appointment with the broker. The broker will complete that. The broker has support team obviously around them that does all of that. The broker will do the meeting. The broker will then make their recommendation on file and send that back into the support team for processing. The support team will continue monitoring that through to approval. Once it's approved, we have a settlement team, and then it is handed off to the settlement and post-settlement team there after.
So that was a pretty fast run through. So just quickly going back a couple of steps. So you talked
Mm-hmm.
about an automated system when the client first reaches out. Is that provided
Mm-hmm.
by your aggregator or is that something else?
Nah, we built it.
Okay. And so it's
Yeah,
basically just getting is it getting documents at that point or is it just getting them to answer questions about their purpose?
both.
Okay.
So both. We built that process on the front end just to really kind of automate not only the intake of information, but really understanding the allocation of broker so we can pre-vet that appropriately.
Okay. And then you talked about the broker having the meeting and the broker making the recommendation. Is there any step in between where someone helps the broker reach that recommendation? So does someone do like the servicing calcs or like do all the
Yeah.
kind of admin side of that? But it was the broker doing that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely preloaded for the broker. So it's in the system, the funding position, their financial position, their cash flow analysis, their servicing quickly. Thank God for quickly. All of that is done and loaded in for the broker to then play with and model and how they would like it to look. But all of it is loaded in.
Yeah. Okay. And then and post settlement, you said you've got some like team members that deal with that. Is that more around is making sure their bank accounts are set up, or is that about repricing? Like what exactly do they do?
It's absolutely everything depending on the investor strategy and goal, or it could be if it's self-managed super fund, monitoring that if we've come in at a higher LVR and we're revaluing because we want to get that reduced down. It is so individual what we're trying to do for that client post settlement. It's bigger than repricing. You might have come in, let's say, at a 95% or a 90 or above 80, and we are fairly confident that in a short time frame that might get to a point that it's a lower LVR. So we want to be monitoring those revals to make sure that we can get those price points down.
Yeah.
Or if we're planning on doing an equity extraction, we're monitoring that as well so that we can move them through. So that post-settlement team is really watching that. They're monitoring so the broker will initially set up the strategy for that client, depending on what the client is trying to obtain. That will get sent through to the post-settlement team. The post-settlement team will monitor that exact strategy based on the timeline the broker has set. And then once we've hit that metric of what we are trying to achieve, whether it's higher val or equity extraction or refi or better pricing, then they will send that back through to the broker. If it needs to be moved, the deal moved, or just reprice, they'll monitor that.
Yeah, awesome. And the other thing I want to ask you is about, you said you hired 2 more brokers recently, so you're now a 5-broker team. A lot of brokers, when they start scaling, are like, I just don't know if I can bring in more brokers. I don't know if I can find the leads for them, or maybe I want them to find their own leads and be pretty independent. Like, how does your model work? Do you kind of bring in salaried brokers? Are you responsible for them all? Or do they kind of have to be like self-sustaining?
Yeah, no, I have salaried brokers and they are paid commission above that. But not that I'm at all against them bringing in their own business or anything like that, if that's what they want to do. But we have had our book shut to new leads more than not this year. So it would be difficult. We would just need to continue hiring more people, because if they continued to bring in more business, that really wouldn't assist at this stage with the volume that we currently have, which for right now is our primary thing we're trying to solve.
Yeah. And demand at the moment is obviously so high. We're in the spring selling season. We've had the expanded guarantee scheme start. We've got investors falling over themselves. We've got people looking at SMSF. Every single segment of the market, it seems, is moving.
100%.
What are you seeing at the moment? What's your main business coming through?
Everything that you just spoke about, then we are seeing all of it. We're seeing first-time buyers obviously getting very excited about the schemes that are coming through and the new caps that have increased, opening up different areas for them. So there's that. Investors have been very hot for a little while now, and that will continue. Self-managed super fund is once again the flavor of the month, I think, and it's really funny. It's a full circle moment for me, because I initially did self-managed super fund lending in the bank pre-Royal Commission, which then absolutely got wiped. But it was the flavor of the month then too. And then it got all but stripped back to Nelly Latrobe. And now we're just seeing more and more and more players come back into self-managed super fund lending. And so that is definitely ramping up again, as is commercial. Commercial is also taking a big play off the back of yield compression.
Commercial property.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm curious then, so what kind of things are you now doing? Because I noticed that your job title is managing director. So I was like, does that mean you're not the active loan writer anymore? Are you kind of really working on the business? Are you still doing business? Are you picking and choosing what business you're doing? Like, what does it look like when you get to this sort of size of brokerage? Like, what sort of things do you want to be doing?
Yeah, no, I'm still definitely a broker. I love lending. I absolutely love the client. And I've had some of my clients I've had for 12 years. I've had them for so long. So no, I'm still definitely a broker. I still definitely do deals. I do appointments with clients every single week. I would say my ability to do now a lot of new clients becomes more and more limited, unless it's a very niche or complex area that really needs my skill set on it. But that it would be almost impossible for me, because of the maturity of the book, to be able to continue doing that at scale, which is obviously why we've hired and skilled up and coached other brokers in the business to be able to do that. But no, I still definitely do lots of client meetings. There's still lots of clients I talk to all of the time, and I don't think I would completely remove that. To be totally honest, I'm not sure I'd see a day where I completely stop talking to clients, because that's the core of why I started it. I really love being a broker.
Yeah.
I love the coaching element. I love mentoring team. I really love seeing their team success in there and bringing them through. You know, Ash, as you mentioned, she was number 31 on the same chart. Like, there is no agenda at all for really me to be a principal broker and me writing the primary volumes in the business. Ash has only been with me for 1 year. So really, you give her another year on that and she'll be further up there. Maddie, she was only 2 million out of that chart as well. And that's the first year she's been a broker. She's never lent before that. So give her another year, she's further up again, and they can kind of start pulling through a lot of the volume that I would have been doing. And that's just the natural progression of the business.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you love being a broker. And you mentioned there's some of
Yeah.
the things you do love about it, not only like teaching the kind of the
Mm.
newbies coming up, but also teaching your clients and kind of financial
Yeah.
literacy. What is your favorite kind of loan to write?
Or anything really complex, probably for me. I really love complex self-employed, multi-entity, a goal-driven investor, very strategic outlook. I want to make sure that we're modeling things out to an extensive level for wealth creation and generating that into perpetuity. That's anything very, very complex from a client perspective is probably my bread and butter, I would say now. And I understand complex self-employed very well. So it's something I really enjoy working through and understanding people's businesses and working with them from a relationship perspective to either grow out a portfolio or, get them into a downsizing position, really whatever the goal is, but it's very goals driven and building out a plan to achieve it.
Yeah, so it's really the strategy side of things. It sounds like
Oh
you really
yeah,
enjoy rather than
definitely.
because I bet there's some brokers listening is like, I do not want that. I want
Yeah,
a
I
vanilla
know.
mum and dad,
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's an argument there. Commercially, my model does not make sense. Because you obviously do spend an enormous amount of time strategizing out what, could be the deal size is the same and the way we're remunerated. It doesn't matter how many hours you spent strategizing what that was. But for me, kind of like I said earlier, you go through phases of your own journey in your own life where you're personally at. So aligning yourself with people that are at a similar stage in life or journey or further than you, because I think that the best learnings I've had across my career have come from some of my clients, and just getting to know them as people and understanding how they work and how they operate and what does their business structure look like? What are they working towards? What have they done with their business? So we just have a very genuine, two-way relationship of, yes, I'm kind of doing the lending on this side, but I'm getting to know you and your family structure and your business structure and how you've done all of those things. And that has been enormously beneficial for me to be able to then build out hundreds of, mentors for me that then gives me a lot of great information into and insight into what I should be doing in my own business.
Oh, I
So
love
I
that.
think
Yeah.
it's it's and if the approach is less transactional and more relationship, it's very easy to then kind of organically have those conversations because you kind of have blurred the line a little between, that's just my client to just somebody that I talk to regularly, and you just happen to then do loans with them as well. But you could there are so many clients I could just pick up the phone with that have great businesses and go, hey, what did you do once you got to this stage, and how did you structure that, and what did this look like, and what was the org structure of that business? And we have lawyers in there, and we have forensic accountants and all of these different things, and I'll absolutely love getting to know all of them.
Yeah. And the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about that you mentioned earlier was about how when you started your business, you then had your third child. And I can imagine
Yeah.
a lot of people listening are like, ooh, that sounds like a lot of hard work trying to have a baby and also run a business. How did you manage when you had to take time away to have your child?
Well, the third one, because I was a lender through all three. But the third one timed really weirdly, sort of in that COVID period. So I had her in July, and so we had lockdown. So they opened it back up for 2 weeks. She was born in that 2 weeks, and then they locked it down again just after she was born, when she was 2 weeks old. So at that point, I kind of worked through the whole thing. I just at home anyway, but so was everybody else. So it didn't kind of impact me probably in the same way in that, shall we call it, maternity leave period. But everybody was already at home. So I was still at home with her the whole time. And then I went back into the office the following year when everybody went back into the office. But the timing of that with her just timed really, I suppose, conveniently somewhat with COVID in being at home all of the time. I think different stages of business, that would be easier and harder to do. There's different pockets of where that would be probably a little bit more complicated depending on your support team. And then there's other stages. I feel that you could just roll through it the same way as well. And depending on how much time you'd like to have out would depend on how impactful that would be.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask this is because we recently had our Women in Finance Summit and Women in Finance Awards. And a lot of the questions of people asking our panelists and our speakers was around, how do you balance work and life? And obviously, if you're working from home, a bit easier to manage your kids if they're especially if they're young. But for people who are like, well, I became a broker because I thought it was going to be much more easy almost than it is, and kind of being surprised at how much work it is, and then being like, actually, maybe I can't do this. And I think perhaps that's why we see the number of women staying in industry actually being quite low. Like, people seem to start and then leave. Do you think it's a good profession for women who do have children or who are wanting to have children? Like, I'm wondering, like, just generally for women, do you think it's a good profession?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is. But you are really the outcome of the choices that you've made, good or bad. So, and that occurs for women or men. That doesn't discriminate. So really the situation that you're in, you've chosen one way or another. So you either choose a way that you make that work or you don't. And it's absolutely possible to have both. I think there are challenges that could occur if you chose a different way to do this career. You would need to be very strategic about how you're going to do that. One of my brokers, she just come back from maternity leave. It's absolutely been fine for her. We've got really young babies in the team. And of course there's lots of stuff that comes with that. You get your first year in daycare and you get every illness under the sun and all of the things, and then they go through teething, and now we've got some sleep regression and all of it. That's life. That's what life is. That's how that goes, and that's absolutely fine. That's just part of it. Can you work around it? Absolutely you can. There is absolutely a way that can occur. I've done it forever. My eldest is now 8, and I've built my whole career during being a mother. You don't have to choose. You can absolutely have both.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick break here, Katie. When we come back, I'd like to talk to you about some of the biggest bugbears that you're seeing in industry at the moment that you'd like to see fixed. What kind of challenges you faced along the way and how you overcame them. And of course, your advice for brokers wanting to build and scale their businesses. And we'll get into that just after this message. So Katie, it sounds like you're a pretty optimistic person. I've been asking you around like some of the things that I thought would be difficult, and you're like, nah, love it. So I'm just wondering, have you had any challenges along the way?
Yeah, for sure. Like, there are things that are opportunities for growth, absolutely, and opportunities for learning. And, it doesn't mean it's a challenge or an opportunity. I guess that's your mindset around how you're approaching all of these things, come out at the victor, not the victim, I think. There's lots of opportunities in there to go, oh, that's good feedback. That did not work. Let's give that another crack. And I think The messaging in that is failure is not failing, quitting is. It's not that you need to get it right the first time. You just need to do it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't do it. That's fine. It doesn't really matter. You're going to get feedback one way or another, and that feedback's either going to say, kick on, that was great, or maybe do that differently. So one way or another, you're going to get the answer that you need to be able to do the next thing after it. And challenges, sure. I don't know that I see them as challenges in the same way, though, as more just an opportunity to pivot or do something differently, or have a new learning that you can then impart on somebody else later. And it's, all the failures, I suppose, are just lessons for something else. Sometimes they're expensive, but they're still lessons.
Failing up, I like that. But is there any examples you can give me maybe of something a lesson
Yeah.
that you've had to learn?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been, not trusting your gut, I think, and, intuition is there for a reason. And I feel like earlier days, you probably don't back yourself on that as much as you probably should. So there's highs that you go, yeah, I could be wrong here. Maybe I'm not right about that. And then you go, no, actually, that's how this business structure should be. There's industry changes. I started lending in the GFC, then we had a Royal Commission, then I was in a mining downturn, then there was a global pandemic. So all of these things which you could call a challenge, and I had 3 children through all of those things, you could call all of them challenges. They're just different market conditions at the time that you then pivot off. The industry again is about to go through, I think, another wave of difference. There's been policy updates that come out, and all of those things are opportunities to really work out what would you like to do next with the business or the framework or people that you're going to align yourself with. There are definitely moments in there where you have, partnered with people or whatever that looks like, and then you go, that's not working out. And at the time you're like, okay, take stock. What do we need to do with that? Recharge, let's go again. But what comes off the back of that is always better than what was before it. And I trust that more than being scared of it.
Yeah. And then when you think about the industry as well, I mean, everyone's got different bugbears or different gripes, and kind of being like, if there was one thing that you could fix, like what would you want to fix?
I'd love more women. I'd love more women in the industry. Absolutely. I'd love them to feel empowered that they can do everything that they think they can't do. Like we already touched on, you can be a mum. That's absolutely fine. You can go to every school assembly. You can go to every sports carnival. You can run a company if you want. You can do all of those things. It is possible. It can be done. I'd love to see more women in the industry for sure. I think there is potentially a bit of a lack of confidence around that. To your point that you said earlier, there is a bit of a nervousness around, can it be done or not? I think it definitely can, and I'd like to see more of that. I think industry-wise, they're probably broader than that. There is maybe not enough cohesion in the industry from feedback between, first party and third party. The proprietary channels can be problematic, and we do see a decent amount of that as well, which the outcome to the client isn't always beneficial, and that can be problematic.
Channel conflict.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, channel conflict exists. And from a business perspective, do I understand why there would be channel conflict? Yeah, I understand why they would segregate that market to be able to capture market share everywhere. It makes good business sense. I get it. But obviously, from the broker perspective, there is channel conflict.
And if you think about the things that you're going to do next, so I mean, you already talked about hiring people this FY. Yep. You've kind of been expanding out. What are you going to do next with your business? Like, what are your plans for FY26 and going into FY27?
Yep. Yeah, we're absolutely full steam on scale. So we have, really geared up our systems and processes and our back end support team. We've got in some really great operational stuff to be able to build that out. And that is exactly our intention. We already have a lead problem in terms of being able to service everybody. So we need to be able to service that in a high quality way. So maintaining that. But even broader than that, we really want to be able to do that more broadly across the country, not just sort of localized here. So we really are having bigger conversations than that to expand.
Yeah. And then obviously it sounds like you're super busy, but what do you actually do to kind of de-stress? Because I think a lot of people are like, at work, especially as a small business owner, you work pretty much nonstop. Like you can't really switch off because it's your business. But how do you manage your stress levels and your kind of your well-being?
Yeah, look, I've kind of got two versions of this. I feel like, the analogy, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life is kind of true. The energy that I get through the business and the team and the growth and the scale and the clients is really, really uplifting. So I don't feel like I need to decompress from the day to day necessarily in that, like that was really difficult sort of thing. Are there opportunities to go, okay, I'm going to recharge? Absolutely. Weekends, absolutely love hanging out with my family and my kids and my husband and everything that we do over the weekends, camping and going and seeing country music bands and, doing all of that and just hanging out in the backyard, really. We're on acreage. Which is just so peaceful to me. I really love, living in, which is, contrary to what I said, being very social and love having people around. But then we've kind of got just a pocket of bush around us. But, I feel like it's the most simple things in life and being grateful for those that it's really enjoyable. Just in winter, sitting around a fire and having a drink with your mates is perfect.
Love that. And just in closing, Katie, for anyone thinking about scaling their business and being like, you know what, I want to do that. I want to have my own business, I want to have other brokers. What advice would you give them as a business owner that's done it?
Get your systems before scale. Systems before scale every single time. Get that down. Know why you're doing it. Have your core vision. Know your mission statement. Know what that looks like. The systems and process, if you do it back the front, you're going to be in the hurt locker for ages, and it's going to be very difficult to unwind yourself from that. And I'm not opposed to building the plane while you're flying it, but there is still definitely some core metrics that you need to have in there to really make sure that you're not going to burn people out and that they've got good support as you're building that up.
So figuring out what kind of capacity looks like and making sure you're resourced for it.
Definitely, and making sure that you've got everything from a skill set aligned to the correct part of the process. You can't have somebody that's new to role from an entry level position trying to do your servicing for you. So it's not going to work. The client outcome is going to be terrible. You're going to have too much volume in there. You'll drop the ball somewhere along the way. So if that's not locked down and then you try and scale at that point, you'll miss it. The reputation won't land, and that will make that very complicated. If you get all of that right from the outset and just be super excited about the most ordinary stuff in the process and do it very, very well, that is really when you know that you're primed to be able to build that up.
Yeah, love it. Hey, I could carry on chatting to you for another hour, but we probably should start wrapping up. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing all of your insights and your story here on Elite Broker. And many, many congratulations again on being named the #1 Elite Broker Residential 2025.
Thank you so much, Annie.
If you've got any questions for me or for Katie, then do feel free to reach out. You can reach me at editor@theadvisor.com.au, and of course, Katie Thomas at Focus Finance. Find out more about her brokerage. Check out the Elite Broker ranking. It was in the October edition of the Advisor magazine. If you want to have a look at who else was in the ranking this year as well, maybe think about whether you could be in it next year when we open it up. And of course, do take a listen back to previous episodes on the Advisor Podcast Network of how other leading brokers are running their businesses. We hope you have a fab week, and we'll catch you next time for another episode on the Advisor Podcast Network.